the Independent City Council for Monday, June 21st, 2021. Our invocation this evening will be offered by Shirley Murdoch, member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If you would please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Attitude of a city council meeting, and we are so grateful, dear Heavenly Father, to have the mayor and this council men and women that are interested in, knowledgeable of, and can conduct the affairs of the city of Independence, which is growing and developing and is a wonderful place to live. And we ask thy guidance and direction and inspiration to be with the council as they consider, identify, and ponder the affairs that need to be tended to. And dear Heavenly Father, we are cognizant of the COVID-19 pandemic, and for the citizens of Independence that have not yet been vaccinated, we ask that they might be encouraged to do that. And we ask blessings upon the people, the citizens of Independence, that they will be interested in and be good neighbors one to another. We love thee and give thee our gratification for the many blessings that we enjoy. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmembers Huff.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
DeLucy.
Here.
Steinmeier. Here. Hobart.
Here.
Mayor Weir.
Here. We have several citizens who requested to speak to the council this evening. When I call your name, if you would please come forward and state your name for the record. You will have 5 minutes. The clerk will keep the time up here at the podium, and she will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining. The first is Jeff Rogers, who requests to speak to the council regarding the case development project on Bass Pro Drive. Mr. Rogers.
Good evening. As a resident of Independence, I'm supportive of the case development project. Retail options have changed over the last 2 decades, and what was envisioned for the land today is much less likely to occur as our culture has shifted to online purchasing. The opportunity to increase residents in this area will support current and future residents and retail. There's also been a shift in what many young professionals want for housing, as well as retirees, creating a need for new, no-maintenance, upper-end residential living. This project will give additional options for current residents of Independence and give a reason for others to consider Independence as a place to live. Increasing our sales tax base. Increased residency will help not only this area of the city, but it will also have an impact on all of our economic centers. Close to 80% of disposable income outside of online sales happens within 20 miles of where someone lives. We should approve this project that will bring increased revenues to retail and restaurants, not only in the Bass Pro development, but in other Independence businesses as well. Building this doesn't cancel out other residential opportunities and possibilities, including single family and other multi-unit options. It's not either or. It should be yes and. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rex Warboys. Did I pronounce that correctly? Warboys, okay, who requests to speak to the council regarding the case development project on Bass Pro Drive.
My name is Rex Warboys. I live on Fall Drive, along with 21 of my neighbors. We've watched with great concern the development of this program concerning the apartments that are supposed to be trying to go into Bass Pro area with the same name that we've had since the 1st of April, 1987. This development less than a half mile from our housing development. And I'm sure you can imagine the concern that we have with having an apartment complex go in with the same name. We've reached out to a couple different real estate brokers asking for their opinion on the impact that this might have on our property. I'm sure that, you know, that would be different depending on how many different people you ask. You get a different idea, but they all express concern for the valuation of our property in conjunction with that apartment complex. They also questioned the ability of the neighborhood to work with the growth of both those apartments and the apartments that are going up on Blue Valley Parkway on both sides of I-70. Wanted to know if the growth in the area would sustain those as well. You know, we obviously have the same concerns about the apartments going in as the rest of the neighbors, the rest of the area, but our main concern, quite honestly, is that they not be allowed to use the same name that we have. And we respectfully ask that you decline that for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Daniel Martin, who requests to speak to the council regarding the Case Development Project on Bass Pro Drive. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Weir, City Council. I have several concerns about this change in the TIF and how it's structured. My number one concern is, is there a way that the public can be explained how we're going to regain this lost sales tax revenue? From my understanding, it's through a real estate trickle-down effect that goes back to the city, back into their general fund. My concern is that once in 2027, when the TIF ends, that revenue will also end. My other concern is a potential lawsuit from the current bondholders, changing a TIF with 7 years left to go on it without notifying them or giving them the opportunity to comment on it, or maybe even have a say in the vote on it, seems to be opening yourself up to a potential lawsuit. The loss of the long-term revenue from the sales taxes that we'll no longer get, along with the end of it, is my main concern, as was stated earlier. I don't think a housing study was done to see if we really need this apartment complex put where it's proposed to be put. And the traffic study was flawed. It was done during the COVID shutdown. So all the businesses that were in the Bass Pro area weren't open, so they didn't get an accurate count of the traffic on that. So my suggestion is that this not be approved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. We did have two citizens who signed up to speak this evening. The first is Kenneth Love, who wishes to speak to the council about Cracker Neck. Mr. Love.
Your Honor, I apologize. This is more to do with the Bass Pro issue over there also. Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much for being back in session for the public to be here. It's great to be here today. But I want to bring up some memory to some people what happened in the past before a few of these councilmen that sit up here tonight. One of the things that I'd like to bring up happened back in 2018 in the Examiner. Council members, Mike Huff. Excuse
Love.
me, I'm reading straight out of the paper, ma'am.
Sir, you are not allowed to address the council members directly during your
I'm
public
not addressing
comments.
them directly. I'm just reading from the article, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not addressing anyone personally. I'm reading straight from the article. It says, Council members Mike Huff and Karen DeLucy again voted no. Huff had asked if the city's existing utility infrastructure could handle the plan for the complex. 5 buildings and more than 200 units, plus amenities. And DeLucy said before the original vote that the city had a high percentage of rental properties as is. Now, since then, we moved forward a little bit to, and that was 2018. But let's move forward. Let's stay at 2018. First off, one of the councilmen, I think, should exclude himself tonight from putting a vote in due to the fact that she has received money from this organization. And it states it right in the MEC. Also, let's move forward to 2019 and 2020. There's another councilman in a different district that has received not one, but two different dollar amounts from this organization that is asking for votes tonight. I didn't have enough time to search other councilmen or mayor to see if they received money because my phone is almost dead. But I personally feel that if you have accepted money, y'all should exclude yourselves from a vote, because it doesn't look like you're in favor of what the citizens need and what they're asking for. To me, it looks like it's being money put in your pocket, and that's buying a vote yes or buying a vote no. Four more with this. In the past, it had been spoken and asked, has there been a study done for electricity to power by Tom Scannell? At the present time in 2018, Tom Scannell said no, but he would get back to the previous council. Then a past councilman that sat in District 4 also stated that there's been no study. We have no way to provide enough power. To that, it would also bring down the value of the homeowners around that area. That he was totally against an apartment complex, but he was in favor for single-family homes. Now, throughout this pandemic that we've had, I personally have been picking up food boxes and delivering to families that are seriously in need at a lot of our towers, different organizations that are low-income housing.
You have
that
1 minute.
That have no way to get their food. We have more problems there that need to be addressed before we approve another apartment complex being built within the city of Independence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Love. Our final speaker who has signed up tonight is Holmes Osborne, who would like to speak to the council regarding the rezoning of the Bass Pro property. Mr. Osborne.
Evening, Council, evening, Mayor. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Holmes Osborne. I'm a citizen of Independence. I also serve as an elected trustee of the Metropolitan Community College for Subdistrict 4. I wanted to speak out against the CASE project this evening. I wanted to give you 3 reasons. The first reason is that the city's unfortunately done a lot of TIFs over the years. We don't need to do TIFs. We have 117,000 residents. Business will come to us, just like these stores that are opening up now. They will come to us. We don't need to give away our tax base. Second reason is that this is prime property. It's at the corner of 291 and I-70. We will get business there. I don't know if it's 5 years, 10 years, or 50 years, but let's do this for our children and grandchildren, not elderly property developers. Third reason is this city needs to fight crime and blight. We don't need more apartments. We have enough apartments as it is. There was a stick-up close to my house recently at the Community America Bank on 291. I live a block away from there. I raise 2 young children. I find that quite disconcerting. We need to focus on this, not having more strange tax deals. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes our speakers who signed up in advance. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the council this evening? Okay, then we will move on to our consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Mayor. I move to approve the reports and recommendations. Sorry about that. I
That's
move to
okay.
approve the reports and recommendations of the city manager. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any items any council members wishes pulled for separate consideration?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes.
Would like to pull 21,764.
21,764. Sorry. Any others? I would like to pull item number 7. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll on the consent agenda minus Resolution 21,764 and item number 7?
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
DeLucy.
Yes.
Steinmeier.
Yes.
Hobart.
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Councilmember Huff, 21,764.
Yes, I had a question about this resolution, Mr. City Manager. Out at Power and Light, I don't have any problem with all of them except when I get down at the bottom, an added deputy director to Power and Light. Been laying off people, get rid of people over at the power plant. We have less people working down there, and I'm having a little issue with trying to figure out why we need more upper management when we're shrinking and we're going smaller. And then the removal of a planning and rates manager, I see that you're reclassifying that above, but could you tell me some information?
Yeah,
on this?
let me begin with so there is an incumbent in that position. We just think reclassifying that into a lower pay grade based on what that position does economically makes sense. So that's actually a savings associated with that. The deputy director is a position that Power and Light operated with for many years, and then through circumstances where we promoted in-house and then had somebody leave, we've operated the last 2 years without anybody in that position. You know, some of the things that we've been conversations with the council as far as the internal strategic planning, the staffing plan, things like that, that we're being asked to handle in-house. We just think having some extra support for that makes sense. So rather than paying for external consultants, we're hoping to bring the deputy director position back to provide that internal management to help accomplish those goals.
So we have a main guy out there, can't think of the name, sorry, under the utilities out there, which to me is the director, and then you have another director, and now you want another director.
Well,
Is that
we
what you're
have
saying?
the assistant city manager who oversights the utilities, all 3 of those, plus the other departments they supervise. Then we have a director of Independence Power and Light, but then we don't have a deputy director position at this time.
Okay.
Both water and, municipal services, which now incorporates stormwater, those both have deputy director positions as well. Just
Right,
wanted to
but you're
clarify.
hiring there, right? You're not hiring here. That's what I'm getting at. We're reducing staff, but we're adding brass. I'm kind of lost on why we need more at the top to manage this thing.
Ultimately, that will be the council's decision to make. Our recommendation to you is that we need to achieve some of these strategic initiatives that were recently approved and need manpower. I think, unless I was wrong, the message was clear that we weren't to use external consultants to help get that done, that we were to use in-house, and so we're hoping to have some manpower to achieve that.
Okay. I'll move to approve 21,764.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
DeLucy.
Yes.
Steinmeier.
Yes.
Hobart.
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Resolution passes. Item number 7, the city manager had sent the council some information regarding this earlier, I guess it must have been in mid-last week, that there was some confusion, I would say, about the bid on this. When I looked at it, there was a lot of differences between the 3 bids. The bottom lines of 2 of them were really close, and then the third one was, very much out of line. And that is Superior Bowen, who has been a contractor for the city for a number of years. Their bid was, 3 to 5 times higher than the 2 lower bids. So, Mr. City Manager, can you just explain, that is very uncommon, and there would seem to be quite a bit of confusion maybe about how this bid was structured.
Yes, absolutely. I will present on this. If you have more detailed questions, I'll ask our staff to get involved. But what this service is when the water department needs to make street cuts to go in and repair a broken water main, we utilize contract services to repair where that street cut has been made. The current bid with the contractor had expired, so we went back out. When those were scored, originally a methodology was used just what the mayor referenced of looking at the bottom line. Under our procurement policies, once that determination of an intent to award has been made, other unsuccessful vendors have a right to make an appeal of that decision if they so wish. And in this case, Davenport, who's the vendor you see here tonight, did point out that when this was last awarded, the methodology that we used to score that was different. Rather than looking at straight bottom line, 3-year averages over the life of the contract of estimated costs were utilized as a scoring methodology, which made their contract over the long term more financially favorable. In addition, the council may recall you recently passed the local preference ordinance, which costs were within 10%. That was a credit that could be applied against the bottom line as well. So
Of the three, who is under that local preference?
Davenport is. They're
Only?
located in, yes, they're in Northwest Independence.
Oh, so they're, okay.
Yes.
They're an independence
Correct.
business?
Yes, ma'am.
And the other two are Jackson County?
Have offices outside of the city, headquarters.
But Jackson County?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
So, under the procurement policy, that appeal goes to the Director of Finance and Administration, who makes a determination. He felt the most equitable thing was consistently apply the scoring methodology across terms, so from what was used last year to this year, and again with the local preference ordinance in mind, made the determination to reverse that initial intent to award and go with Davenport Construction.
Okay, thank you. I would move for approval of item number 7.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes, item number 7 passes. Okay, we have 2 public hearings this evening. The first is a public hearing for the application by Case Development requesting a rezoning from C2 General Commercial to R30 PUD High Density Residential Planned Unit Development and approval of a preliminary development plan for the property located at 4580 South Bass Pro Drive. This is new information only. Mr. Arroyo.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Rick Arroyo. I'm the Assistant Community Development Director here at the city. This rezoning application was considered by Planning Commission back on December 8th of 2020. Planning Commission did recommend in favor of this rezoning. This, of course, is the Bass Pro site that's just south of Mardell and Hobby Lobby, going from a C2 to R30 PUD. I have no new information to add.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions from the council on the public hearing? Public hearing is closed. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-029, an ordinance approving a rezoning from District C2 General Commercial to District R30 PUD High Density Residential Plan Unit Development and a preliminary development plan for the property located at 4580 East Bass Pro Drive in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember DeLucci.
I would like to explain my voting tonight. I plan on voting in favor of the rezoning. In 2004, a prior council approved the, am I not on? Oh, okay. Approved the Bass Pro development. Everybody calls it Bass Pro, it's the Cracker Neck Creek. We had great visions at that time of retail development. Well, as everybody knows, those great visions, although some have come to pass, the majority have not come to pass. That land has been vacant for 17 years. In the past 5 years, the retail development within the entire nation has tanked. We are now going to online sales. I do not see retail development happening there. I wish I could say it would, but I don't think it will. And so now we're faced with the question of, do we amend the TIF to allow the rezoning of retail? I'm sorry, from retail to residential. We anticipate we will earn in real estate taxes over the next 5 years $1.3 million in real estate taxes to the City of Independence. If we do not rezone for the residential, we're not going to make that money, and that land is going to continue to sit vacant. In 5 years, when the TIF expires, that land will be rezoned residential. So the question is, am I going to take advantage of the situation now, case development, quality development, they're going to manage it, they're not building and walking away, and make the city a little bit of money to help us pay that TIF. Those houses are going to help Hartman Heritage, the mall, as well as Crackerneck Creek. I know 4 or 5 years ago I said we had enough housing. Not in that area, we don't. That is a prime area for the young up-and-coming people who are traveling and they don't want a house. They want to have easy access on the interstate, and that's why I'm going to vote in favor of this project. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilman
I
Steinmeier.
have several questions. First I want to say that I do appreciate the idea that that we want to expand the space and utilize it finally. And it's being proposed to us, it's either one way or the other, it's either or. And I have a real problem with that. I've heard that retail is dead. We've heard that from presentation 2 weeks ago. So I thought I would just pay a little visit this morning out to one of the retail stores. So I went to Duluth, where you can buy underwear for anywhere from $22.50 to $37 for one piece of underwear. I can't afford that, but apparently others have. So I found out the manager, and I asked the manager, how's sales? And she says, they're really good. And I said, can't be. We've been told retail's dead. She goes, we are not dead. I said, how long have you been in retail? 16 years. I said, well, that tells me someone with experience. She says, yeah, retail is cyclical. There's highs and there's lows. And in this particular case, she says, retail's not dead. We're not dead. In fact, we're expanding. We're building, we're growing in other states, other cities. She said, in comparison, from 2019, they're not even counting last year, because last year we all know what that's like. But from last year, or 2019 to this year, they're up 13 to 14%. That doesn't sound dead. It doesn't sound like life support. It sounds like people are starting to come back. They're wanting to get out. They're wanting to shop. So I appreciated her time. I dismissed myself, told her I appreciated her advice to us to think of retail in a different light. She was actually a little upset that we were saying that her industry is dead. She's made a living for 16 years. She's raising a family in retail for 16 years. She was just a little offended by that notion. So I went outside. Lo and behold, the young lady walking her dog. I stopped her. She's 30. She has an MBA, and she lives close by. I said, what would you think about some apartments down at the end? She says, why? Why do we need that? I said, that's what we're told. We can't build any more retail space. We can't have. We don't seem to be able to attract new capital investment out here. So this is what we're coming up with. And she goes, well, I wouldn't live there. I said, do you own or rent? She says, I own. She said, the people in my age group that are educated, that work hard, we want to own something. Oftentimes, people in that age group, they don't think they can own something. So that's why they end up in apartment situations. She said, plus I want to be here in this city. I want to establish myself. I want to raise my family. I want to work here. People that live in multifamily units, they generally don't. So I expressed my appreciation for her sharing with me. I said, well, if I said, this is a blank slate. what would you do? She goes, well, you could do your apartments. She said, but make it fun. Make it someplace attractive to us. She said, I know what's in Bass Pro. I don't need to go Bass Pro. And by the way, I got a letter from someone in the chamber that said if we build the apartments, then you can go across the street and get a meal at Bass Pro in the restaurant. That restaurant's been closed almost 2 years. So I want you to come to my district. I want you to shop, but go look. And when you give us letters of support, know what you're supporting. Sidebar, sorry. So I asked her very politely if she could tell me what she thought. I did a little mini focus group, very elementary, right? So, and I've asked some 30-somethings that understand it, and they know that we're comparing ourselves with Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and Overland Park, and all these places. Well, they have housing on top of small business structures where it's an atmosphere. It's a place to go. It's a place to meet up with friends. It's a place where you can have ice cream, or you can sit down at a pub, or you can have pizza, or you can go to different shops. So they're saying, why haven't, who's speaking for the 20s and 30-year-olds? I said, well, they have the same color hair as mine, if they have hair at all, but we're talking for you. She said, well, why aren't you asking us? I said, it's a great question. That's why I'm asking you, and I appreciate your concern. So I shared that with her, just knowing that I would like to not hear what you think 20s and 30-year-olds and independents want. I'd like to hear from them. And the ones that I've talked to, like I said, it's been elementary, but at least I've asked. And they're saying something totally different. And by the way, in this market, which real estate is booming right now, for $1,000 a month, you can buy a $180,000 home. Not too many cities offer that type of quality housing, but Independence does. And as people in real estate, I would much rather have the opportunity to help someone achieve the American dream and own a home. Many of them just don't think they can. So it's an education piece. So I'm not sure that this is the right answer. I think this is a typical independence knee-jerk response to something that just hasn't worked. We're just doing, well, this sounds good. Well, I'm not here to represent today. I want to represent generations down the road. What is this place going to look like 20, 30 years down the road? That's my concern. Mr. City Manager, I've got several questions for you tonight. One of the big concerns, I got several calls, and the reason why I sent it out was that they were concerned that many on our council have received contributions and felt like there may be some ethics or conflicts of interest, and asked if there was a way we could postpone this and have our Board of Ethics look into it and make sure that there is no conflict before we vote on this. And I think transparency is a good thing, and I think it is a wise thing to know that if we're going to vote tonight, that everybody is, that we're okay doing so, that there isn't a conflict of interest. So one of the things I'd like to do is ask if that would be appropriate. Can we move to postpone and allow our Board of Ethics, as the charter reads in Chapter 5.6, to make sure that there is no conflicts of interest, if that's something the council would entertain?
Mr. City Manager, I'd like perhaps ask the city councilor to explain the parameters of conflict of interest and the purpose of the City Ethics Commission.
Please.
Well, I'm not really sure how to begin to answer that. My initial reaction is to say that I don't think it would be appropriate to postpone this to take it to the Ethics Commission, because I don't think that is their purview. And I think I'm going to leave it with that.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to make, I will come back, right back to you, Councilman Steinmeier.
Okay, thank you.
A few weeks ago, we voted on the the contract for the IFA, the International Association of Firefighters Local 781, I am fairly confident that nearly every member of this council has received campaign contributions from the firefighters union, and nobody abstained from that vote. You may continue, Councilman Steinmeier.
Thank you, appreciate it. Well, we do have a Board of Ethics that meet on these types of issues. And while I respect your opinion, Mitch, I would ask that we give them the opportunity to meet, review it, and make that decision. That's their job. Would you agree with that? Or am I not interpreting it correctly?
Madam Mayor, I don't know if the council member is making a motion or not. I don't think it's appropriate to engage in a dialogue with the lawyer from the dais.
Then I'll make the motion.
Second.
What's the motion?
Motion is to allow the Board of Ethics to review it and so that there's
Okay.
a clear and a transparent process that people feel comfortable with.
Okay.
So you want to delay the vote?
I just want to delay the vote till after the Board of Ethics has a chance to review it. That's all I'm
Okay,
asking.
there's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just for the record, I didn't take money from the firefighters union.
Okay,
but
thank you.
I just wanted to clear that
That's
up.
very, very good.
And,
Thank you. I apologize.
And I guess secondly, I do agree we need to postpone this. I've also received several contacts that believe that there are individuals on this council that have accepted campaign contributions from Mr. Constance, and I think we should just make sure that, we're all in the clear before we take a vote.
Okay, very good. There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll on the motion to postpone and refer this to the Board of Ethics.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
No.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
No.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
No.
Mayor Weir?
No, motion fails. Councilman Steinmeier, you have anything else?
I sure do. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. City Manager, I guess we should get into, just because there's been this issue of this concern of what we're communicating to other developers. I'm more concerned with what we're communicating to our citizens. This TIF took place in 2004, correct?
Correct.
I was able to review a review of the Falls of Crackerneck Creek TIF plan dated September 6th, 2013. Do you know who put this audit together?
A much younger version of me.
There you go. And you did a fine job.
Thanks.
I was very impressed. I learned quite a bit. In this audit, you mentioned many things that I was shocked to read. We were told that a couple weeks ago that we've had all these reasons why this TIF is not done well. 2008 housing market, right? I mean, that was what we heard.
Sure.
Right? And that was one of them. It took time to rebuild from that, recover from that. We had several things listed. We had a pandemic. We get that. But my concern in reading this is discovering that this TIF, which was over $70 million, and the city is completely on the hook for it. Is that correct?
The city's backed the bonds with the full faith and credit of the city.
Right, and so that means that this developer can walk away from it and the city is on the hook to pay for it. In 2006, what happened? Was there, in terms of the first payment, was there the ability to make that payment?
I wasn't employed with the city at that time, and I don't remember my audit. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Councilmember.
it's okay.
Yeah.
I figured you had this all in your memory banks, right? So it's okay. There was my understanding is that we went into default at $3.5 million in 2006. Does that ring a bell?
I believe the city had insufficient funds to pay the debt service.
Right.
Yeah.
And we talked about, you did a brilliant job in just explaining some of the concerns, the risk You had financial advisors, you had a large number of people, attorneys, bond counsel, and they said that they were unanimous and candid in warning the city of their repayment obligation, the consequences should they choose to rebuff these obligations. In other words, if we defaulted, there's consequences.
Correct.
Right. So, but we're on the hook for all of it. And I'm only going through this to review with the people of this city that understand that the messaging that I'm more concerned about is not what we're saying to developers. I want them to understand that how this is going to change the dynamic of this TIF. I think it's fair, and if it takes a few minutes, I hope you'll bear me that time. One of the things you said, that the agreement specifies that the developer may, at its option, make cash payments to the city in an amount sufficient to cover the gap between available funds in the special allocation fund and the amount required to make debt service payments on all outstanding TIF obligations then due. If the developer declines, the city may declare the developer to be in default. I think that happened in 2006.
Right.
Did we ever get out of the default situation?
We declared the developer to be in default, but city leadership at that time chose not to exercise the teeth, which was taking of the land from the developer. I do recall the two things mentioned in there. One was if the property became ownership of the city, we would lose the real estate taxes. It would be non-taxable property, so it would be further behind on the TIF. And the second thing was the city would be responsible for maintenance of the property.
And you noted that there's significant risk with this TIF from the very beginning. But our professionals looked at it and said, it's worth the risk. How's it worked out for us so far?
I know the city has had to, I don't remember the exact dollar amount, and I don't want to quote that, but millions of dollars in debt service payments from the general appropriation, and then the recent refinancing with the city engaged in. While it has leveled off those payments, it extends debt service out for another 30 so years.
Okay. So, there was also a failure to meet the deadlines, and the city then requested in writing the developer engage a national leasing firm to assist the project. What happened with that?
That predates me, council member. I'm not certain.
Well,
how
I'm
that.
just reading off of your line. So it just said that there'd be an aggressive, full, and complete marketing of the project, including targeting prospects, research of existing Bass Pro developments nationwide, strategies to encourage cooperative brokerage, exposure on all internet-based marketing and commercial property exchange systems, assisting the city in ownership and public relations, press releases, and preparation and publishing the promotional materials and graphics. So we know that we weren't making headway with the current development company, and they were, since we were on the hook, being asked to make a more aggressive approach to get something moving down there, correct?
Correct.
Do we know who owned that property before the Crackerneck Creek? I do not. Okay. That was asked of me, and I wasn't sure that I knew either. So, I just want folks to know that we do have the ability as a city to take and there is, you even mentioned that we should potentially use a professional marketing company, EDC. We need to incorporate everybody, because the projections that we made back in 2004 just haven't happened. But my point is that before 2008, 2 years after the approval of this $70+ million, they were already in default. So I'm concerned. I'm just wondering how are apartments going to see us out of this financial boondoggle, or as you have called it, an albatross around our city's neck. How is that going to happen? What is the plan moving forward? How are apartments going to do that?
I told somebody the other day, it frustrates me when my kids spray toothpaste over the bathroom counter.
Yeah.
But I can yell and scream and the toothpaste isn't going back in the tube.
Right.
This isn't going back in the tube.
I agree.
It's time to clean it up.
I agree.
And our thought process as staff in supporting that recommendation to the council was that it may not add one more business in the district. There's a chance that might not happen. There's a chance there may not be anything added at all. But that's no worse for the wear today than if it were. What does happen is the real estate taxes that we derive and the utilities from the residents who would rent these apartments there. So there are some known financial gains to the city with, as we see it, very low to non-existent financial risk to the city. But for the original bond documents prohibiting this type of development, this approval wouldn't even be necessary for the council, but they did because they envisioned this being fully retail and paying for the project with sales tax revenues. Obviously, the property hasn't developed, and so I think the shape of the property, along with the economic challenges, make retail development at that site very unlikely. So I just want to be clear. I will not go on the record as saying this will bring a single business into that TIF, but it might. So that's
we don't know.
Yep.
I mean, these are all projections.
Yeah. It's the towel to clean up some toothpaste.
But here we are, what, 17 years later? Still making projections, still in hock, no progress. Now we're going to eat up space that could have been created or used to create more jobs, whether they're retail sector, I don't know. And we're asking them to go in and compete at very high level with in my district, I've got 2 more that I'm concerned about. And they're getting ready to come online, and they're expensive. And the person, like I said, the person that can qualify to rent those units could buy a home in this city. Independence is one of the most affordable cities in the metro. It really is. And it's a great place to establish your family, raise your family for generations to come. And I, for one, am not going to be short-sighted and make a decision because nothing else is working. We need to look 20, 30 years down the road, and we need to ask ourselves what's been our experience with multifamily units 20, 30 years down the road. We used to have Chiefs players and Royals live in this city. The Kansas City Kings used to have residency here. So I'm concerned about where it's going to be. That's how I'm going to vote. I'm going to look down the road and say I'm going to say that we don't have real revenue projection here that's going to help us get any closer to paying this albatross off with apartments as we would, being innovative and creative. And I'm sorry, we can do better. And there's ways to do it. You asked me to go look at Liberty and Lee Summit and Blue Springs and Overland Park. I've been there. I see what they're doing. Just doing a traditional multifamily unit doesn't make sense to me. I think you can have both. If we really want to go back to the board and talk about it, discuss it, maybe ask some 20-somethings and some 30-somethings. That'd be my suggestion. That's why I'm voting no tonight. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this item?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Huff.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. Number one, like always, infrastructure. How are we, not so much with the power, because I know it's out there. What about the water and the sewer? How are we looking on it?
When the developer will pull permits, they will have to show that they are able to tie into and not overwhelm the system. And if they do, we'll have to work with them. And by work with them, I mean they'll have to help us add capacity to
So
that.
that'd be like aid to construction or something? I mean, is the citizens here going to have to pay for that sewer if it's not big enough?
No, that would be developer's cost.
Number two, I just have a real problem with this deal here, and that, why are we dealing with someone that's in default and still in default with the city? Why are we doing business? I mean, this is crazy that we're doing business with someone in default to the city. This thing has cost this city citizens tons of money, and I'm not against the Case project. I think there's nothing wrong with it. It's where it's at. This is number one real estate in Independence, I-70. How much, like Mr. Steinmeier said, how how much marketing have we tried? I haven't seen anything but a sign sitting out there for sale, big deal. Have we really went after and tried to find somebody? I mean, we go out here, that's all we have is a bunch of fast food restaurants. We don't even have a quality restaurant unless we go to Vivalores or something like that. I mean, there's nothing out here. I don't understand why everybody thinks you're gonna have all these influx of young people what are they gonna do here? They're gonna go to, what's out here? I just think that we need to worry about some other things before we, not that I'm against it, just where it's at. I mean, that's real estate's worth a lot of money. But my other concern is our police force. We're gonna throw 200 more people out here. We got the Spano ones going here. We can't even keep cops on the street now. What are we gonna do about cops? Where's our public safety? Things like this bother me. I mean, we're in a crisis here with the police. I don't care, you can admit it. Everybody can sit back and say, oh, no, we don't, but we do. And we're gonna have to do something about that. And now we're gonna add, between all these developments, 600 more people. Just things to throw out there, but that's all I have.
Any further discussion on this ordinance? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
No.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
No.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
No.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes, ordinance passes. Our next public hearing is for the application by SBD Capital Investments LLC requesting a preliminary development plan for the properties located at 2901 to 2925 South Harvard Avenue. This is a full public hearing. Mr. Arroyo.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. This is a preliminary development plan that was considered by Planning Commission on May 11th. Planning Commission did recommend in favor of this plan. This was a continuation of a development called Sterling Village that started back in 1999. It kind of stalled back at that time. In 2005, it was brought back up. 4 units were built. And then again, it stalled again during the economic recession, and the new group wants to continue this project forward. The development plan has expired, so that's why this is here today for you. I have no further information to add.
Thank you. This is a full public hearing. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in support of this application? Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Are there any comments or questions from the council on the public hearing? Public hearing is closed. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-030, an ordinance approving a preliminary development plan for the property located at 2901 to 2925 South Harvard Avenue in District R6 PUD Single Family Residential Planned Unit Development in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Ordinance passes. This brings us to our non-ordinance action items. Madam City Clerk.
Budget amendment request number 1 for fiscal year 2021 to 2022.
Is there any discussion on this item?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember DeLucci.
Thank you. This basically started as a request for funding to reopen the National Frontier Trails Museum. As you might remember, a few weeks ago, we looked at it for the first time, and it came to our attention the Tourism Commission had not yet looked at the final budget amendment. Therefore, we postponed the vote and sent it to the Tourism Commission. They did in fact have a meeting last Friday, and they asked that we amend the budget amendment in front of us tonight for 2 reasons. One, they would like to delete the request for a vehicle, a $30,000 vehicle. And 2, they would like to reiterate to the department that the payment of the $240,000 back to parks should be based on the pandemic recovery of the tourism tax. Therefore, I would like to amend our present budget amendment to delete the request for the funding for the vehicle of $30,000 and to remind the department to look at the economic situation going on regarding recovery from the pandemic and to time the payment on the bond, on the repayment based on that recovery. And I need a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, there is a motion and a second to amend This non-ordinance action item to remove the request for the vehicle for the department and to, I'm sorry, Councilmember Delucci, postpone the repayment until we have better understanding of the recovery of the tourism transient guest tax.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Does everybody understand the motion? Okay. Madam, is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, please call the roll on the motion to amend.
Councilmember Huff,
No.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes,
Steinmeier,
No.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Motion passes. Now we will vote on the non-ordinance action item as amended.
Madam
Is there
Mayor,
any
if I can.
Further discussion, yes, go ahead.
Of course I have to talk. The Tourism Reserve Fund has $1.3 million in it, which is almost twice what our reserve policy calls for. This funding will reopen the National Frontier Trails Museum to match the historic sites that are run by the volunteers. It will allow us to make a little bit of capital improvements, like to maybe do the parking lot, patch it a little bit, and also to repay a note. Even after spending that money, it's still gonna have way in excess of the reserve that we aim for. So I just suggest that everybody remember how important tourism is to this community and support it. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll on the item as amended.
Councilmember Huff,
No.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes,
Steinmeier,
No.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes, item passes. Madam City Clerk.
Council action is requested to adopt an expenditure plan for funds received through the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, ARPA.
Is there any discussion on this item?
Madam Mayor, if I may again speak.
Yes.
I attended the Board of Health meeting a few different times where they were adamant in their request for the additional funds of $300,000 to bring minimal staffing to our health department. As this council is well aware, in 2017, we got rid of the health department. We used that money to fund the police, and we got rid of the standalone health department. We diffused all the duties of the health department at that time to various agencies within our city. Unfortunately, time has told us that that was a mistake, and we've worked very hard, led by you, Madam Mayor, to regain our health department with the state, and we've done that. Unfortunately, our timing was such that we missed out on the opportunities for state grants and federal grants. This $300,000 would fund our health department to allow us time to rebuild the health department. I know that there is concern on this council that we should not use one-time money when we have an ongoing expense. I suggest to you, this money is a gift from Washington based on the pandemic. Our health department is needed. We have reinstituted it. $300,000 from the $20.3 million is not even a blink of an eye. This will allow us time to study for perhaps ongoing funding, whether it be a reallocation of the health and park recreation levy or perhaps another tax, I don't know. But this $300,000 will get us 2 more nurses, 2 public health specialists, and a pool of nurses. I am not a doctor, I am not a nurse. I defer to their judgment. They're saying this is minimal staffing. And I ask the council to support our public health needs and our Board of Health. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on this item?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Perkins.
thank you. Is that because I was getting ready to speak? I'm just kidding. So I will be, thank you. I will be supporting this, but I'll also throw a word of caution because we dismantled the health department formally because of some redundancies between the county and what we were doing. So the caution that I would have is that as we regain our footing and rebuild, that we look to the future, what our needs are with our mental health, particularly to work with that. I don't want the same health department at all that we had dismantled for all those reasons. So as we're moving forward, getting our footing, let's take a comprehensive look of who we're hiring, who we may not hire. I'm just stressing, I think I can speak for most of the council. We do not want the same type of health department. We want the health department that fits the needs now, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now. And that's not straight immunizations. That's not put needles in people's arms. There's plenty of redundancy services there. Mental health is where we need to be. How do we do outreach? How do we do co-responders? Wyandotte County does an excellent job with this. They are a pretty damn good model to review and to look at. But as we build this, we need to have those partnerships with our mental health facilities and our medical facilities to do this. So that's I will vote in favor to help reestablish and get some footing, but I will be cautiously looking to make sure we build this thing in a correct manner.
Any other discussion?
Briefly, Madam Mayor.
Yes,
Caught you just on the breath. My apologies.
it's okay.
Very quickly, I agree with both Councilmember DeLucia and Councilmember Perkins. You know, public health issues now include mental health and include homeless. And both of those issues build on each other, and they are an increasing problem, as we all know. I am fully on board with having a new style of health department. I know the city manager and I have had this discussion for, well, a year now, and we all really, at least most of us, expect, and I'm saying this for the health department people that are here, and for the Board of Health members that I know we've really gotten the attention of lately, that if you take this money and turn around and start doing a bunch of immunizations that are already being provided by other providers, and if you start doling out birth certificates or death certificates or whatever it is that you might have done in the past, this is not our interest. It's not. Jackson County Public Health does that. Private providers do that. So please heed our words, Mr. City Manager, your staff. We really want to do something good with direct value to our citizens with this.
Any further discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, did you want to respond, Mr. City Manager?
I just want to clarify for the council, because this appears on your agenda in a fairly unique way. The original plan that staff brought forward to you in April is the item that was docketed. But then with the $300,000 allocation that Councilmember DeLucia spoke to last week, that is, you'll notice on the attachments, it says ARP spending plan with proposed amendment. So it's not a true budget amendment as it were before. So we should consider Councilmember.
I did want to clarify that because Mr. City Manager, you and your staff put together a plan proposal for how to expend the $20 million that we expect to get from or will get from the federal government through the ARP program. That went to the Audit and Finance Committee. They approved it, sent it to the council, and that was approved.
We didn't have you vote on it. We presented it to you.
So that's a little bit why I'm confused, because this is the approval of that document, but with this change.
Correct.
Okay, so that is, I'm glad that we've taken a moment to clarify that, because there's, I mean, we worked a miracle to get our health department, LPHA, restored in a very difficult time. And, you know, certainly our health department, Christina Heinen, we called Diane Egger out of a different department to help us through the pandemic. She's now the assistant director of the health department. You know, we grew our medical reserve corps from 60 people to over 1,700 people to help us do these vaccinations. Our clinics are ongoing and help us with the testing and the contact tracing. So there's a lot of resources, and I'm not suggesting that we rely on these volunteers to, you know, substitute for our professional health department, but we certainly have a lot of resources. So my concern is that utilizing this one-time money for ongoing expenses, as Councilmember Perkins has said, this is a unsustainable model that caused us to have to make a tough decision back in 2017 about where were we going to use this funding. Since then, we have adopted financial policies. This is not in line with the City Council's adopted financial policy. There's many other resources out there. We just returned from a trip from Washington, D.C. The state is sitting on a lot of federal stimulus money as well that we may be able to access. So I liked the plan that came to the council from the Audit and Finance Committee. It did include a grant writer funded for 1 year. That grant writer, presumably in the future, if we determine to retain them, would have to fundraise their own salary plus what other grants would be available. So I'm not as concerned about that, $85,000, I think that was. I've had a lot of discussion over the last week or two with some members of the Advisory Board of Health about some other possibilities. And my recommendation would be to postpone this until, I'm going to say, July the 19th. This has nothing to do with the budget, the annual operating budget of the city that we're going to be voting on. This is totally separate. The Advisory Board of Health members that I spoke with had some very interesting, I think, innovative suggestions. I just don't really know how this $300,000 is going to be spent. I mean, it's just not, I don't know how many nurses that, and I'm very reluctant to spend this one-time money on ongoing operational expenses that we're just going to have to find other money for down the road. It's been highly discouraged to me in my conversations with our senators, congressmen, and the governor to use this one-time money for things that are going to be ongoing expenses. So I'm very reluctant to use this to hire people and find ourselves back into the situation that we found ourselves in 2016 and 17. So I'm torn because I liked the plan that came to us, but I am uncomfortable with moving forward on this evening. So I would like to make a motion that we postpone this until July 19th and have an opportunity to have further discussions with our health department and our advisory board of health about long-term plans for funding the health department.
Before a second is made, I'd like to ask the city manager a question. Mr. City Manager, I kept talking about a budget amendment.
Right.
And that's a misnomer. I should not have used those terms. Now, I know within your ARP funding, some of it is linked to the budget. And so my question is, if we postpone this entire vote tonight, will that postpone everything within this document, which will mess up your budget?
It'll postpone everything in the document. There's a couple, let me point out the couple of things that are tied to this up front right now. The repayment of the farmer's market loan that was made from the water fund, so that was reflected in the budget. The transit subsidy is reflected in the budget, and then the stay well subsidies are reflected in the budget. Additionally, on your agenda tonight, as a upcoming agenda item, is funding for the police ballistic helmets, which was one of the recommendations in here. That said, if you do delay it, in effect what that does is those dollars would still be reflected in the budget. We just wouldn't be able to spend them on those purposes yet because they don't yet exist. It'd be like some of these grant funds that you will approve tonight. We don't have those grant dollars yet. So it's.
Can we pass a non-balanced budget? That's my question.
Well,
because if the money's not there, then the money's not there and the budget doesn't balance.
So if you don't adopt these ARP line items for what they were originally proposed for, those items I just mentioned,
right,
we would need to come back in during the course of the fiscal year and amend the budget to reflect the fact that those revenues weren't allocated to the city. So, for example, the budget would show the transit subsidy. If that didn't come, we would have to go make an appropriation from general fund balance to do the transit subsidy instead of the ARP fund.
Okay.
Mayor?
Okay, so then I'm going to rescind my motion. Because that gets really, that's just way too complicated. I would, Mr. City Manager, just for the benefit
Sure.
of the community, if we approve this evening, we still have to appropriate those funds later down the line. So I just am very unclear about, it's not been articulated in any way what this $300,000 to the health department would actually fund. The request was made for $300,000. It's, I know there's been expressed some needs for additional personnel, but nothing in this does this commit us to hiring any additional personnel. Is that accurate to say?
We would have to work with the health director to determine then how
So we
best to
could go
allocate
ahead
it.
and say, we're gonna put $300,000 in the health department, and then we'll determine how that needs to be spent. And if it, and so that would still allow us to have this discussion with you, the department, the advisory board of health, about how those additional funds would be allocated, or they could be, moved to a different purpose if we don't find an appropriate use for them.
You're gonna have to, yeah, correct, you'll have to appropriate, and you will, more than likely, I don't know this 100%, but probably have to amend the pay plan to include any new positions added if these were
Very
removed
good.
from the pay
Okay.
plan.
Gotcha. Very good. Okay, any further discussion? Yes.
So just for clarity, we're sticking it there, putting a hold on it until further discussion to allocate back out, right?
Right, I would,
We have to vote first.
yeah, should this pass, then the items that are highlighted on your sheet, the farmer's market, the transit, the stay well,
Right.
and the ballistic helmets, if the budget is adopted later this evening, we will go ahead and make those allocations and appropriations. Everything else, we'll know to hold to continue working with the council on specific appropriations for the rest of those.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, item passes. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-772, a resolution appointing Sherry Tyndall and Les Boatwright as members of the Public Utilities Advisory Board of the City of Independence, Missouri.
Is there any discussion on this bill?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
so if it wasn't obvious at the study session, I have a very strong objection to who the City Council Interview Committee chose for this. With all due respect to them, I just do not agree. So I'll be voting no, and then in addition to that, I put two non-ordinance action items of my own on there who I think should be appointed. Those individuals, 2 out of 3 are lifelong residents. They serve already on committees, they ask good questions, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
No.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
No.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
No.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes. Item passes. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-773, a resolution reappointing Jack Looney and appointing Edward Nesbitt as members of the Public Utilities Advisory Board for the City of Independence, Missouri.
Is there any discussion on this item?
Madam Mayor, since the previous item passed, I'll make a motion to indefinitely table this item.
Second.
It's been moved in second to table 21773 indefinitely. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes.
Okay, I got it on my phone. We can go now.
Believe somebody online is unmuted. If you could please just mute your microphone. I'm sorry. The motion to postpone indefinitely passes. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-774, a resolution appointing Anthony Giramita as a member of the Public Utilities Advisory Board of the City of Independence, Missouri.
Is there any discussion on this item?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilman.
I realize this would normally go to the advisory board, but we do have an opening for this, and I would like to ask the city council to go ahead and appoint Anthony. Anthony does live in my district. He's a lifelong resident. He doesn't have any political agenda. He shows up to all the meetings and the study sessions, and that's all I have.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just, I hate to vote no on such an item, but I think we need to go with process and kick this name back into the rotating committee that reviews these and go through that process before bringing a name forward for consideration. So I'll be voting no because of procedural that we've, as a council, have established and using that.
Okay, any further discussion?
Delucci agrees with Perkins.
Madam Mayor, can you make that a note of record, please?
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Wait
Hang on a
minute.
second.
Hold on.
Are
No,
you appointing?
I'm sorry. No. I beg your pardon.
I'm sorry.
You got excited about Karen, didn't you?
I did. That just threw me over
It's
to
too
the top.
much.
So thank you for the
Madam
catch.
City Clerk, please call the roll on the resolution appointing Anthony Giramita, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce her name, to the Public Utilities Advisory Board.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
No.
Stewart,
Yes.
Delucci,
No.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
No.
Mayor Ware.
I am going to vote no, but we will certainly convene our council interview committee shortly. The timing of the resignation of one of the members has caused a little bit more confusion, but we would be happy, we will go ahead, Madam City Clerk, and convene that meeting so that we can conduct those interviews. Okay, this brings us to our ordinances for this evening. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-024, an ordinance finding, determining, and declaring the necessity of acquiring temporary construction and grading easements and general utility easements for the Raymond Hackless to Mill Stormwater Improvement Project, project number 70131806, authorizing the negotiation and eminent domain proceedings if necessary, approving the plans and specifications for the project, authorizing the use of experts as needed, authorizing and directing the execution of documents and the payment of funds to property owners or others holding property rights in conjunction with the project. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Delucci,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, ordinance passes.
Bill number 21-025, an ordinance authorizing acceptance of the 2021 Midwest High Intensity Drug Trafficking and Area HIDTA Memorandum of Understanding MOU for the Kansas City Overland Park DEA Task Force Initiative and related documents with the Kansas Bureau of Investigation for a grant award in the amount of $156,166, making the necessary appropriations, authorizing future change orders for additional funding and/or time extensions, and authorizing certain future appropriations. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Delucci,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, ordinance passes.
Bill number 21-026, an ordinance finding, determining, and declaring the necessity of acquiring facade easements for the Truman Mural and Trails Mural project, authorizing negotiation with the property owners, authorizing the use of experts as needed, and authorizing and directing the execution of documents in conjunction with the project. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
No.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
No.
Delucci,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
No.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, ordinance passes.
Bill number 21-027, an ordinance authorizing acceptance of the 2021 Midwest High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area HIDTA Memorandum of Understanding MOU for the Investigative Support Center Initiative and related documents with the Kansas Bureau of Investigation for a grant award in the amount of $148,326, making the necessary appropriations, authorizing future change orders for additional funding and/or time extensions, and authorizing certain future appropriations. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Ordinance passes.
Bill number 21-028, an ordinance approving the First Amendment to the Crackerneck Creek Tax Increment Financing Plan. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Where am I? Something's flipped on me here. Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
No.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
No.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Ordinance passes.
Bill number 21-031, an ordinance finding, determining, declaring the necessity of acquiring temporary construction and grading easements, new right-of-way and general utility easements of the 24 Highway Complete Street Phase 1, project number 70111-801, authorizing the negotiation of eminent domain proceedings if necessary, approving the plans and specifications for the project, authorizing the use of experts as needed, authorizing and directing the execution of documents and the payment of funds to property owners or others holding property rights in conjunction with the project. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill?
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I believe this is quite noteworthy. This is first phase of a three-phase program that's been going on for discussion for several years now. Not to go to the back long history of it, but the first phase will go from 291 Councilman Stewart's district all the way to River Boulevard, and this will be the beginning part of a very transformative part of our city that is long need for transformation. So I'm very excited that this is a good kickoff to this full project, total build-out project with Truman Library. The bridge in front of Truman Library is approximately $27 million. Cost share program. This is a great kickoff, so I'm happy we're moving forward with that.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Ordinance passes.
Bill number 21-032, an ordinance amending Article 1, City Cemetery of Chapter 6 of the City Code, setting fees for city cemetery grave space and monument-based prices, and moving said fees to the schedule of fees, all amendments outlined in this ordinance to become effective July 1, 2021. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Ordinance passes.
Bill number 21-033, an ordinance adopting the annual operating and capital budgets of the City of Independence, Missouri for the fiscal year July 1, 2021 to June 30, 2022, estimating the revenues for said fiscal year, appropriating sums for the purposes stated in said budget, establishing operating transfers, designating fund balance allocations, establishing the authorized table of organization, and designating those who may make a requisition for encumbrances against appropriations. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Ordinance passes. This brings us to our first readings. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-034, an ordinance amending section 12.01.003 of the Independent City Code to add the phrases sexual orientation and gender identity to 12.01.003 subsection C. Bill number 21-035, an ordinance approving the amended 2020 to 2021 annual action plan for program year 46 and the 2021 to 2022 annual action plan for program year 47 for the CDBG and home programs, authorizing applications to the Department of Housing and Urban Development HUD for the Community Development Block Grant CDBG program Year 47, and the Home Investment Partnerships Act Home Program, Year 27, authorizing execution of a written agreement and acceptance of CDBG and home program funds under the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 and making the necessary appropriations. Bill number 21-508, an ordinance approving the final plat for Grace Subdivision in Independence, Missouri and declaring an emergency. Bill number 21-508, an ordinance approving the final plat for Grace Subdivision in Independence, Missouri and declaring an emergency. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins? Yes. Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Ordinance passes. This brings us to our council member comments. I will start on my left with Councilman Hobart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have 3 items. The first item is that, well, actually 4. The first item is that the City Theater of Independence is back in business, and they put on a show, Broadway Under the Stars, last weekend at Liberty Lounge, which the Square Association is used to, and had a very successful time. It's a great, going to one of their productions is a great way to spend some good quality family entertainment time. It's very affordable, and they're back in business. So it's also, for a while, although it'll be hot, a good way to get outside and get some fresh air too. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it's good to see the Loggers folks here, but it's not Bob Sorensen. It takes 4 of you to replace him. I know, we got his head too big, didn't we? Yeah, so it's good to see them, FOP guys. It's really good to see you guys. We see you from time to time, but it's nice to see a number of you here tonight. So glad to see that you're taking an interest. That's right. The other part, I want to make one quick mention, and I just wanted to say, and there will not be details to be gotten into, but there have been, I just want to let the people know out there that this council is coming together in a much different way. And for the folks that believe in being optimistic, the folks that believe in positivity, the folks that believe in this council and that we can do good things, it's a struggle sometimes and it's hard, but this week was a bigger step than most of you will ever know. And I am going to do my part to stay positive and be positive and spread that message. And I just want to let the folks know that without getting into how the sausage is made. One more thing. It is somebody's birthday in this room. I have not been authorized to say who that is, but I am going to sing. This is your birthday song. It isn't very long. Hey! That's it. Thank you so much. Mr. City Manager, thank you for the budget work and all your staff. This is an incredibly hard few months, so we appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilman Steinmeier.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Norris, I thank you for the follow-up on my budget questions. There are some that thought that might have been ridiculous to ask for, but having details when we're asking to spend $6 or $3 million and understanding what the details are and how it's categorized and what that falls under, I thank you for that. I wish we would budget like that. It makes it more transparent, and that's not a reflection on you. That's just my personal desire to see, because it helps us to understand how money is being spent, not just a line item that says this is the amount we're going to spend. Tell me how you're going to spend it. That's all I was asking for. So thank you. You did a great job on that. I think I'll just end it right there. I do appreciate our guys in blue that are here, that are our gatekeepers. You know, we sleep better at night because we know you guys are there on the walls, at the gates of our city, and you stand between good and evil. And I know that I sleep better at night knowing that you're out there. pray for you daily, pray for your families daily, pray for your safety, and I pray for help so you can get some rest and enjoy your vacations and the things you want to do. So appreciate you all tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember DeLucci.
I just want to say thank you to the multiple citizens who support this city, the tourism, the health departments. I will say that we are desperately in need of volunteers. We have multiple historic sites that we depend on volunteers. And there is no way we can, as a city, run all our sites without the volunteers. And with the pandemic, people have gotten older over these past 16 months, and maybe some of them are not up to doing what they did before. So please, volunteer. Call the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Stewart.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilman Perkins.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Councilman Hupp.
Yes, I wanted to thank Lisa and Jeff Conway and their staff. Had a real major problem over at 9th Street. They jumped all over it. I do appreciate it. Did a fine job. Got everybody taken care of over there. And thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. I wasn't going to say anything, and now I have 5 things that I made notes of during the course of the meeting. First of all, I did have a moment just to look and review my campaign contributions and my preliminary review of that. Just to save you all some time at looking it up, I have received $50 from Byron Constance to my campaign. That was in 2011. From 2014 to 2017, I've received $500 from Mr. Bill Moore personally and his family. I have raised over $221,000 since I first sought election to the City Council. I will be, as we all will, who are elected, submitting a report for this quarter by July the 15th. But just to save some time to address that question that was posed to the council to Councilman Steinmeier earlier today and some of the citizens who came here today. That's a lot of paperwork to go through, so that is my what my records show. I wrote down health department. I would like to, and I will go ahead and work with the council to put together. I really think this idea that the Board of Health brought forward of putting together a combined committee to look at these things and work with our staff and our city manager, and I would say also John Mayfield, who does our legislative affairs, because he has incredible depth of knowledge about everything that's moving in Jefferson City and Washington, D.C. There is a provision in the code that allows for the mayor to appoint a committee of council members to address citizens' concern. That might be the most expeditious way to get this rolling rather than waiting to do a resolution. I will confirm that with the city clerk and the city attorney to make sure that that's the proper procedure. But I think that was a very good idea and will really help us to expend these, understand what funds are needed and where we might be able to get them. In conjunction with that, vaccination clinics are ongoing. Thank you to many of our community partners who have agreed to host these. We're going to continue to urge people to get vaccinated if you have not yet done so. We're trying to make this as convenient as possible. This is very critical. We are seeing these variants and, some concerning rises in COVID-19 and its variants in the state of Missouri. So if you need information on that, it's on our website. You can contact me or your council members, and we'll get you the information about when those opportunities are available. I just wanted to say, my family was out and about over the weekend here in Independence. Our and in Kansas City. And, you know, our businesses are trying hard to get open. Just be patient. They're very understaffed. It's going to take a little longer. If you go to a restaurant, if you go to a retail store, they're having a really hard time hiring people. It's very difficult to start up an operation after it's been closed for several months. So I know, you know, we're experiencing this at the city with some really long wait times, I know, in customer service sometimes. And, you know, we're really trying hard to fix that problem, but be patient when you're on the phone with people and at, you know, your bank or your doctor's office or whatever, and especially when you're patronizing our local businesses. They're trying really hard to bring back all the things that we love and enjoy in this city, but, you know, they're really struggling to have enough staff to do that. I referenced earlier, we did travel to Washington, D.C. last week. Myself, the city manager, and John Mayfield, who handles our legislative affairs. It was a very, very successful trip. We had some wonderful meetings and conversations. We went with numerous requests for funding and for assistance with some projects that we're working on, including the Truman Visitors Center, many infrastructure projects, including the Square 24 Highway, 7 Highway, Truman Connected Trail. So Mr. Mayfield will be giving an update to the council at the study session next week. We have our lobbyist from Jefferson City giving a year-end wrap-up, so we thought it would be an appropriate time to have him brief the council and the community on what our agenda was in Washington and what we achieved. And that is all I have this evening. Mr. City Manager, anything else this evening?
Just a happy birthday to the Duke of Cambridge, Prince William.
There you go. Very good. The longest day of the year. You have a birthday and adopt the budget. We are adjourned.